Have you ever wished you could learn something faster? Maybe it's a new language, a new skill, or just being able to remember what you read instead of forgetting it the next day. We all want to learn faster, but here's the truth. It's not about being smart, it's about learning how to learn. Because the world's best learners, scientists, entrepreneurs, athletes, don't have superpowers. They just use science backed strategies that help the brain work with them, not against them. So, in this video, I'm going to share the science of learning faster and exactly how you can apply it to anything you want to master. We'll talk about what neuroscience says about memory, how to trick your brain into retaining information longer, and the little mistakes that are actually slowing you down. Ready? Let's get into it because the way you learn is about to change. Now let's start with the bad news first. Most people learn inefficiently. They reread the same page 10 times, they highlight everything, they cram the night before the test. But science tells us that's one of the least effective ways to learn. Dr. Robert, a psychologist from UCLA, calls this illusion of mastery, the feeling that you understand something just because it's familiar. But familiarity doesn't mean understanding. You might recognize the information, but that doesn't mean your brain can recall or apply it when it matters. That's why most people forget 80% of what they read within a week. Not because they're dumb, but because they're using the wrong methods. So let's fix that. Let's go over science backed techniques that actually help your brain retain, recall, and master new information faster. The first principle: spaced repetition. Your brain learns through spacing out information, not cramming it. Here's what science says: each time you review information after a short break, your brain strengthens that memory. But if you try to learn it all at once, your brain gets overwhelmed and dumps most of it later. That's why apps like Anki are so powerful. They use spaced repetition systems that show you information just before you're about to forget it. It's called the forgetting curve, discovered by Herman. It shows how quickly memory fades and how reviewing at the right intervals helps lock knowledge in for the long term. So if you're learning something new, review after 1 day, then after 3 days, then after a week, then after 2 weeks. You'll be shocked how well your brain starts holding on to information. Because repetition isn't just practice, it's strategic timing. Second strategy is one of the most powerful and simplest. Teach what you learn. It's called the Feynman technique, named after Nobel Prize winning physicist Richard Feynman. Here's how it works. If you really want to understand something, try explaining it in your own words, as if you were teaching it to a 10-year-old. Why does this work? Because teaching forces your brain to organize information clearly. When you teach, you notice the gaps in your understanding, and those gaps show you exactly what you need to review. So instead of just taking notes, try this. After every study session, explain what you learned out loud to yourself or even to a friend. It doesn't have to be perfect. The point is to translate knowledge into your own language. That's how you move from memorizing to mastering. Next up, active recall. This one is a game changer. Instead of rereading your notes, test yourself. Force your brain to retrieve the information without looking at it, because the act of recalling strengthens neural connections far more than passive review. It's like going to the gym for your memory. Every time you retrieve knowledge from memory, you make it easier to recall next time. That's why students who use flashcards, self quizzes, or practice questions remember things up to 50% better than those who just reread their notes. You can combine this with spaced repetition for maximum results. So instead of mindlessly reading, ask yourself, what was the main point? Can I explain this from memory? And what example supports this idea? That's how you train your brain to store information, not just recognize it. Now, here's something most people ignore: your brain doesn't learn well without rest. Neuroscience shows that learning happens in two phases: focus, consolidation. During deep focus, your brain absorbs new information, but during rest, your brain sorts, connects, and stores it. That's why short breaks, naps, and even daydreaming can boost learning speed. The brain literally replays what you just learned while you rest, especially during sleep. So use the Pomodoro technique. 25 minutes of focused work, 5-minute break, and after 4 rounds, take a longer break. This rhythm balances focus and recovery, allowing your brain to retain more while preventing burnout. So don't force endless hours of studying. Sometimes walking away is exactly what your brain needs to lock it in. The next lesson might be the most important. You learn faster when you do something, not just read about it. It's called experiential learning, and studies show we retain up to 90% of what we actively practice, but only 10% of what we just read or hear. That's why you can watch 10 tutorials on YouTube and still not master a skill because you haven't applied it. If you're learning to code, write code. If you're learning to cook, get messy in the kitchen. If you're learning a language, talk even if you make mistakes. Every mistake is a feedback, and feedback is fuel for faster learning. So don't just consume, create, because experience is the ultimate teacher. Now, here's a bonus strategy backed by cognitive science: interleaving. It means mixing different but related topics during practice instead of focusing on one thing for hours. For example, if you're learning math, mix problem types. If you're learning guitar, switch between chords and scales. This forces your brain to constantly adapt and strengthens your ability to recognize patterns. Interleaving might feel harder, but that's the point. That slight difficulty makes your brain work harder, and that's where true learning happens. Here's the truth: learning fast isn't about shortcuts, it's about using your brain the way it's designed to learn. When you apply these science backed methods, fast repetition, teaching, active recall, rest, and real practice, you'll be amazed how quickly you can master anything. And remember, the faster you learn doesn't mean the less effort you give, it means the smarter effort you give. So be patient with yourself because progress takes time, but it also takes strategy. If this video helped you, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves learning new things. And tell me in the comments what's one skill you're learning right now and which of these techniques will you try first. Because the truth is, your brain is built to learn, you just have to give it the right tools. See you on the next one.